to have this big animal called countries are rated here, and if you don't do certain things, you are taken down. And as you are taken down, you pay more interest. It is also, we need to have a conversation about credit rating agencies, and we need to have a conversation about risk assessment. Because there is perceived risk that becomes larger than real risk. And that perceived risk is pushed by certain quarters to make Africa uncompetitive. And that is the reason why, while others are accessing development resources at 1 or 2%, most African countries are accessing development resources in markets at between 10 and 15%. Explain to me, honorable members, if one set of countries are accessing development resources at 1, 2%, and another is accessing between 10 and 15%, is it realistically possible for us to grow at the same rate? No. This is the conversation we must have. You know? And we must remove this arbitrary unfairness. You know, this arbitrary unfairness from global financing. And that is why we are saying we must have a thorough conversation about the reform of multilateral development banks and the whole international financial architecture as a whole. When we started this debate a year ago, we had people. But I promise you, today, in every meeting, everybody has come to the conclusion that there is a problem with the architecture of international financing. And the conversation is no longer if, the conversation is when are we and how are we going to reform it. And that is why it is important for institutions like the East Africa Legislative Assembly to apply itself, apply your mind to what kind of contribution are you going to make in this reform that is going to make our economies access development financing. It is the only way we can make meaning to our development. The last IDA replenishment, for example, in 2021 raised US dollars 91 billion, which was disbursed to eligible beneficiary countries over a period of 3 years. The Kenya Summit that we are holding in April aims to highlight to donors and other development partners critical priority target areas of development financing in Africa and in our region, make the case for a significantly higher level of financing in IDA 21 cycle, and support East African countries to effectively address development challenges and exploit the huge opportunities that we have in our region. This is the candid conversation we're going to have. And I am very confident that the fact that World Bank accepted that this was a necessary exercise confirms to us that somebody somewhere is listening to what we are saying. You know, join this course and formulate your contributions to this endeavor with urgency. Give some imagination, put in it some ambition, so that together we can push an agenda that is going to support all our economies. I am highly obliged to you, Honorable Speaker, inviting me to address this assembly. I do not take your consideration for granted, and I believe we're going to have a discourse that is going to be beneficial for all our countries. I wish you all, honorable members, productive engagements, insightful debates, and fruitful deliberations as you usher in the third session of this assembly. Feel at home while you are in Kenya. It's called Magical Kenya, the home of all humankind. And I urge Honorable Omar Hassan, Chair of the Kenyan chapter of the Assembly, to use this session to introduce you to the warmth and hospitality of our country. And I urge you, Honorable Hassan, to make that only in places that are licensed. And in no other places. So, honorable members, I really wish you well while you are in Kenya to what we are doing as East Africa. To give you the impression of what East Africa is doing, and therefore you must be very proud people that East Africa, in our continent, is the most progressive community. Our trade, intra-trade between East African countries is the highest in the African continent. We are providing the leadership. And therefore, you occupy a very special place. And I want to urge you to continuously apply yourself to this huge responsibility. You are not only doing this for East African citizens, you are trailblazing for the continent of Africa. So continue with diligence, but also a pace to make sure that you help us move the continent together. It is the reason, for example, why, as members of the summit in East Africa, as you're all aware, the chair of the AU is coming up next year as the term of Musa Faki, our current chair, comes to an end. It is going to be the turn for East Africa to provide the chair of the Africa Union. We have sat down in the spirit of the East African community. We have consulted as heads of state from the East African community together, and we have agreed to sponsor one candidate as East Africans. As East Africans, because amongst one another. So it speaks to the spirit of the leadership that is being provided by our region. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you very much. May God bless you. May God bless Kenya. May God bless East Africa. And thank you very much for listening to me. Asanteni sana.
We move to order number 6, vote of thanks.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. President, for your great speech, statesman. We have learned, and as members of East African community, we'll have to implement many of your guidances. Now it's time for Honorable Paul Mwasa Musamali, a vote of thanks. Honorable members, we shall have the opportunity to debate this great speech, this presidential speech, and we will do it when it will still be fresh in our memories. It will be done tomorrow morning, the whole day. From morning till the end, we'll be debating this great speech. So, Honorable Musamali, you have the floor. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, and a member of the East African Community Heads of States Summit. Mr. Speaker, allow me, in the interest of time, to stand on the protocol as you already observed. I also want to take this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to thank you and the members of IALA for entrusting me to move this vote of thanks. Your Excellency, as already mentioned, my name is Paul Musamali. Among you, they say that when a big drum sounds, the small one cannot be heard. Now I'm conflicted because you have sounded a very big drum. But let me seek your indulgence and permission, because of this wonderful and elaborate speech you have made. You allow me sound this small drum to thank you for this very important speech. Your Excellency, I want to take this opportunity again, on behalf of IALA members, to congratulate you upon your election to that office of Kenya. Because this is the first time we are meeting since you are elected, Your Excellency. I also want to take this opportunity, Your Excellency, to thank you for the work you have been doing in the service of the people of Kenya and the people of East Africa. We also want to take this opportunity, Your Excellency, to thank you for the statesmanship you have demonstrated in the service of the people of Kenya and in the service of the people of East Africa and the humanity at large. Your Excellency, it was already mentioned by the Right Honourable Speaker, we are very happy when we see you having or taking on efforts to ensure the unity of the people of Uganda, of Kenya, and the people of East Africa, and Africa in general, Your Excellency. We were happy, in particular, when we saw you with President Yoweri Museveni and the Right Honourable Raila Odinga in Uganda. Incidentally, you were all armed with sticks. But you did not harm each other. And among cattle keepers, because I saw cattle behind you in the background, the sticks are basically used to ward off the wild animals, to defend those very animals. So we are happy, but above all, even with the Right Honourable Raila Odinga, I'm sure that we are going to see bigger things come. We thank you, Your Excellency, for the speech you have delivered to this House. From what you have delivered, Your Excellency, I made some few notes, but I have come to understand that in particular, and Africa in general, is not a matter of, but a matter of necessity. Because this is about our lives as the East African people and as the African people. As you may all be aware, honorable members and the public, Africa, just like the President has put it, we have been victims of circumstances
And some of the things were not the ones responsible. You are all aware, the African people were traded as slaves. We were herded as goods, as if we were cattle, into the markets. They were calling them slave markets. Time came when the African people, we were divided. And that's why you see me, I'm the other side, and then the Right Honorable Wetangula is this side. We were divided as if they were dividing a loaf of bread. We were not responsible for that. Again, as we fought, because colonialism was physical, these colonialists withdrew. But as you are aware, they have come back in the form of neo-colonialism. In fact, this time, they are now controlling us both physically and virtually. They are smartly, they are now controlling us. Your Excellency, that is a serious threat to the African people, and it is therefore our responsibility for those of us in the leadership of Africa to ensure that we insulate Africa against these disruptive forces, Your Excellency. You have just given a number of examples, but let me just bring out two. The very last points you mentioned about debt management and responsible sovereign lending, right, Your Excellency. These are part of the disruptive forces. It is therefore our responsibility either to stand up, to be counted, or we again be herded like they did before. Your Excellency, we have 3 points here which I want to bring to your attention. That for us to achieve our integration agenda, in fact, our mission and vision rotates around deepening cooperation and widening, deepening integration and widening cooperation. But it will take us to sacrifice if we are to achieve our integration agenda. Your Excellency, I want to bring to your attention 3 issues in as far as the integration agenda of East Africa is concerned. And you have talked about them. But while you are addressing us, you again gave us an assignment that can someone summarize what you have said? The blood started flowing very fast from my head to the toes because I had been asked to move a vote of thanks. I said, now, am I not going to have a retake in this assignment? But let me put it right on, Your Excellency. In East